Hi, I'm Donna Jordan from Jordan Fabrics. Today I'm going to show you how to make a pattern called Cross My Heart. Now I picked this pattern because it's a pretty pattern and Valentine's Day is coming up and I always like to make a project for every holiday. Now there's one thing I've noticed with the Valentine's Day projects I've made over the last couple of years. I don't seem to get to use them very much. In fact, I might even get them out just for a day or two. I think it's because of the colors. The pinks and reds are very bright and very cheerful, but they're not the colors that I decorate my house in for the rest of the year. So I usually end up just putting these away the day after Valentine's Day, which is unfortunate because I like the projects. I like the hearts. I spent a long time making them. You can see those big hearts there. And I want to be able to enjoy the quilts for a longer time. So this year I'm going to do something different. I'm still going to make a heart quilt, but I'm not going to do it in Valentine's colors. I'm going to do it in these nice, cheerful, springy florals, and that way I can use the quilt all year. Now this is a Cozy Quilt Designs pattern, and it has multiple sizes. Now I'm going to make the twin, so I'm going to need 30 strips and 3 1/3 yards of a background, and I'm going to use this nice really light cream. So I'm just going to pick out a nice assortment of colors. I want it to be nice and colorful, so I'm going to use some of every color here. Big prints, little prints. I'm just going to pick out the ones I like, and I probably won't use the really light ones. Now here's all the colorful strips that I'm going to use in the patchwork, and they're going to get subcut. Now I didn't write the pattern, it's from Cozy Quilt Designs, and so I can't give you all the sizes that these are going to get cut to, but I've made a ton of Cozy's patterns, and that's mainly because their instructions are so easy to follow. I've got all of the background pieces cut, and the jelly roll pieces, they got cut into a small size, and then we also have some of these left as half strips and some whole strips. And what we're going to do right now is take the half strips and some of the background and head over to the sewing machine. So we're going to take all of these pieces and we're going to make some strip units. The first strip unit, it's going to have one of these widest pieces of background and 2 of these colorful half strips here. And it doesn't matter which 2 you pick, just pick 2 different ones, and they're going to go on each side of this. So I'm just going to line up the edges here very carefully. And if you feel like you might stretch the top or the back, then you can put a pin here and a pin at the far end. And we're just going to stitch with a careful 1/4 inch seam all the way down the edge. And you just have to ignore the little zigzags there. Now this seam allowance is going to get pressed away from the background toward that darker strip. Now I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to add this strip onto the far side. Again, make sure you don't stretch anything as you sew, but since we're just working with half strips, it's a lot easier to grab both ends and make sure that both are feeding in at the same rate. This seam allowance also goes away from the center. So we make several of these strip units, and now that those are done, the next one we're going to make, it's going to use 3 backgrounds and 2 of the print strips. So we're going to start with the background, and we're going to put the printed strip right on top of it, and again, just carefully sew them without stretching anything. Now these seam allowances are also all going to go towards the dark. Now we're going to add another background. So when I finger press this, what I'm doing is making sure the seam allowance is going the direction I want, which in this case is that way. And I'm opening it up with my hands, and then I'm pressing right along that seam. So you can use your fingernail, or you can even use the pad of your finger, but just drawing right down there as you pull it open, it makes it lie nice and flat, and that makes ironing it very easy. Now we need to add another colorful strip here. Again, don't be too picky about what color goes where, just try to pick up a different color every time. So I went ahead and added that last background strip, so we ended up with the 2 colorful strips and 3 background. Once we have all of those done, the last strip set has 2 of these medium-sized background pieces with 1 colorful strip in the middle. All of the strip units are stitched up, and even though we finger pressed them, we're still going to want to iron them. So I like to smooth them out with my hands first, and then use a dry iron so I can make sure everything is flat and straight, and then add some steam. Now all of these strip units, they're going to get subcut, and you can cut them one at a time, or you can do like I'm doing. I've got them layered and staggered a little bit, and then I can cut multiple sets all at the same time. Now the reason I have them staggered a little bit is so that all of my seam allowances don't end up all in the same spot, because that makes a lot of bulk and makes it hard to cut. I've pulled off the strip units that we need for 1 block. So we need 2 of these guys and 2 of these guys here and here, and then 1 of the center. Now look, when we put these all together, because of the way we ironed them, the seam allowances are always going to be going in opposite directions. So when I sew these 2 rows together and line everything up, see, the seams are going in opposite directions everywhere they meet, and it's going to do that for the whole block, which is going to make it really quick and easy to sew. We're going to press the seam allowances away from the middle, so this one's going this way. Now we're going to attach these 2. Again, we're going to go away from the middle here. Now we can do this one. All right, that block is nice and flat, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch up the rest of the blocks. The next pieces we need to work with are the colorful rectangles and the background squares, and we need to mark the back side of all of these squares. I like to use a regular pencil and any sort of straight edge, and I'm just going to draw a light line from corner to corner. I'm drawing it a little darker so you can see it, but just a very faint line that we can use to stitch along. Now we're going to take half of these rectangles, I'm just guessing right now, and they are going to get a square stitched with the line facing that way. Then we're going to take the other half and we're going to stitch it the opposite way. So half of them this way, half of them this way. Now to stitch here, you just line everything up and stitch right on the line. And you can tell how accurate you've done that by opening this up. And if you open it up and all these raw edges meet, that's how you know it's perfect. Now we need to press these, so all of the background is going to get pressed away from the corner, so that one goes that way. This one also goes away. And then we want to trim off those back 2 layers. You can take it over to your cutting board, but I think a small pair of scissors right here works really well, and I'm just cutting, leaving a 1/4 inch seam on both of these guys. Now the reason we did 1/2 and 1/2 is so that we can stitch a pair of these together, and this is going to make 1/2 of the top of one of the hearts. So all we have to do is line everything up, stitch it together, and then finger press, and then I will iron these also, but we will just stitch all these together in pairs like that. The next step is to take the rest of the 2.5 inch strips and these background pieces and head over to the sewing machine. So we need to take two colorful strips, and we're going to sew them side by side. So let's take this one and let's take this one. It doesn't really matter which ones you use, but I try to get 2 different colors. And we need to sew these right sides together, and these are the whole width of the fabric, so it's really long, so you can pin it if you want. So you make sure you don't stretch anything, but just sew them all down, all the way down the long side. All right, now I'm going to finger press the seam allowance to the side. And it doesn't really matter which side you press it to. I just find it a lot easier to always press that direction. Now we're going to take one of these background strips, and I think it's easier to put that strip down first and this right on top of it. And I'm not going to iron it right now. You can if you like, but the finger pressing really is enough to keep it flat. And we're going to stitch down both sides. So I'm going to stitch all the way down this side and then flip it around. All right, let's take this right over to the cutting board. Now we're going to cut out some triangles, and I'm going to use a ruler called the strip tube ruler. This is a very handy ruler. I use it a lot. The pattern does give you directions if you don't have this particular ruler, but I'm going to use the 4.5 inch line, and I'm going to put that line there on the stitching line, not on the raw edge, not on the cut edge, on the stitching line. Hold it down, make one cut here, and one cut here. And now look what we have. We have a nice half square triangle that's made up of 2 different fabrics. Now what we're going to do is take the ruler, spin it around, and use that same 4.5 inch line again on the stitching line. Line everything up and make a cut. And I'm going to do that down the whole tube. Now we're just going to take all of these over to the ironing board, and we're going to iron them open. So the way you iron these is whatever direction this seam is going, we are going to iron this seam that same direction. So it's probably going to get ironed toward the background here, and that's fine. And the last thing you want to do is cut off any dog ears. You'll find that you might have 1 dog ear. Some of them have 2, some have only 1. And that's what the block looks like. Now we have all of the parts we need to make a heart block. So let's sew these two together here. And I'm just going to leave that on the machine and then put these two right sides together. And we will press this top seam to the right here and the bottom seam to the left. And these are all bias edges here, so you want to be a little bit careful you don't stretch it. I'm just going to smush it down a little bit. Now we can sew the last seam, and these will be going in opposite directions. And that's the only place we have to match, is right in the middle. So there's the first part. Let's get this ironed up a little bit. Now, the only pieces we haven't used yet are these narrow background pieces. All we have to do is put one of these on the top, one on the bottom, stitch them on, and then these guys will fit onto the sides. So let's start here. And all of these background pieces are going to get pressed away from the center. All right, where are we? Okay, this one goes here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead, iron this up, and make all the rest of the hearts. I've got all the blocks done. Now there's 20 patchwork and 20 hearts, and all we have to do to lay them out is just alternate them. So we're going to do a heart, and then a patchwork, and then a heart, and then a patchwork. And the quilt is going to be 5 blocks by 8 blocks. So I'm going to get everything laid out and then see if I need to trade around to make sure that my colors are nice and balanced. I've got all the blocks laid out, and I traded around just a little bit because the dark blue here is a little prominent, so I tried to sprinkle it throughout and not get 2 of the same color real close. Now all I have to do is stitch the blocks together, get the borders on, then I can get it onto the quilting machine. Now that the quilt is on the machine, you need to pick a thread color. And there's lots of possibilities that will look really good on this. And I think I'm going to use something a little bit colorful. I could use white, but it's just going to recede into the background. But we've got this nice background that really looks like it could use some color. So here's the green. That will show up. This blue, really going to show up. It's a little bit dark for me. I could use the orange. This is kind of a dark orange, but look at how good that looks. Now I've got 2 different yellow colors here, and this is really bright on the cone, but when you take some off and put it onto the quilt, that looks really good. So I'm going to go with this really bright yellowy orange. For the quilting, I have to use hearts, and this one is really fun because it's got these little scrolly things between the bigger hearts, which are kind of abstract shaped. The Cross My Heart quilt is all done. It's a very cheerful looking spring combination with the jelly roll that we used. And now that it's done, you can see those X's for the crosses very clearly. I'm so happy with the colorful thread on here. You can just see the quilting a little bit more, but it still doesn't fight with any of the patchwork. Now on the back, I used a coordinating plaid. I can't see the quilting very much, just a hint, but the colors of the plaid look really good against all these prints here. The quilt turned out 68 by 98, so it's a nice big twin size quilt. And of course the pattern has, I think it's got 4 or 5 different sizes. Thanks for watching our video today on how to make the Cross My Heart quilt. We hope you enjoyed it. And we hope that gives you some ideas for making a Valentine's Day project that can be used for more of the year, like this one. Now before we go, we're doing a giveaway. I've got 2 things we're going to give away today. The first is this nice Valentine's Day table runner. We've got some cute little hearts here. We've got some prints that say love. And this is a nice long, it's about a 60-inch runner, so that will look nice on your table. We've also got this nice heart quilt. This is kind of a large baby size or throw size quilt. This would make a nice wall hanging, and it's got really sweet old-fashioned prints on it. And take a look at the back. Now this looks exactly like the Valentines that we used to give out when I was in elementary school. It's very easy to enter the giveaway. All you have to do is click the link below that says giveaway and put in your email address and your name, and you could win one of these 2 items. So good luck. Now if you like our videos and you want to support us, the best thing you can do is subscribe to our YouTube channel. That would really help us out. Happy quilting!